I've got a new topic for you, and this is more to do with the theory of self-improvement and sort of different practices that people ask me to make videos on. But I figured I'd ask you and get your opinion on these various different methods. Now, the biggest one that people ask me is like, "Hey Nomad, why don't you stream? Because I feel like I could learn a lot watching off you." And this raises a few alarm bells for me. Number one, I'm not that good. Number two, I feel like people like to watch people and they like seeing them succeed in the way that they play the game, whether it's sniping, shotgunning, fusion rifle, whatever.
Yep.
But they don't know the why, as to why it's working for them. What are they doing? What are the things they're doing that you don't see? And a lot of these top players, they're nuts at the game, but either they don't explain what they're doing, or they don't get the questions, I think is the more common reason. Nobody really asks them, what are you doing? Why are you doing it this way? So how much value can you really get off somebody just by watching them without knowing the other half of the equation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting because like there's kind of like, it's kind of this gray area where like, you know, you can watch someone playing, and when I used to do this, like when I was way younger and like watch, you know, the pro Halo players play, there's this thing where it's like you can know like what you do know, so like you're watching them and you know why this was a good decision, and it's like you know that's great, and then there's things that you know that you don't quite know about what they're doing, so like you know you know that they did something, you know it was successful, but you don't fully know why. But then there's a complete area where like it's like things that, if it makes sense, that like you don't quite fully know or are aware, so what you like don't know, like it's like there's like this kind of like a weird gray area where you can't identify these things because you simply don't even know that you don't like know what's going on.
Is it a good starting point though to do, you know, like monkey see monkey do? Like, Frostbolt is using an anti-OP and a summoner. Like, should I start using that? Like, how is he making that work? Let me just put that on and see what happens.
I think that's an interesting place. I encourage a lot of players. Again, it's like you kind of... the problem with watching, I think watching other players is an amazing way to pick up on things and kind of see good examples of like good play. But again, there's this blind spot where like you don't... There are things that you aren't identifying because you don't even know to identify them.
Right.
And like that's kind of where I feel like a lot of like kind of personal like gain comes from. So like when you have someone break it down to you, you then become aware of those things and then you understand them, I find. And that's what I used to love about like a lot of videos, like, so like back in Halo Reach, Bravo started doing like this little series where he'd break down like little matchmaking games and like little tips that you can do, and it would bring, and even I think Ryan Noob did them as well, where it would bring like so much of this, like these things that I would see and like be like, yeah, that was successful, and I kind of know why that's successful, but like brought this whole level of depth to me that like I just wasn't aware of and improved me as
like
a player.
The theory crafting of it all?
Yeah, like just kind of like breaking down a play super in depth and like the meticulous things that I would, as a result, become aware to.
That's a super like good segue into what I wanted to ask you about next. Is that, you know, live commentary, breaking down games, like my kind of content as well, where I take very very basic concepts and then make 10 minutes videos on them because I like ad revenue.
Yeah.
Sorry, full transparency. There's book smart versus street smart, and in the case of Destiny, you know, book smart would be like understanding the concept of game sense, understanding shameless plug 2-second rule, understanding how aim assist and bullet magnetism and how the cones work for different guns and different archetypes. Cones. But then there's the real game that moves very quickly, that throws you in all sorts of different situations, that has the potential to overwhelm you. And I mean, we can sit here and be facetious and say, look, nothing overwhelms us. We know how to play the game. But for the reality of our audience, you know, for them, they're still getting into situations. They're still learning the Crucible. They're still trying to get to grips with an ever-changing meta of different supers, abilities, this, that, and the other. Whatever the case may be, they're still not quite at the level of mastery. is there more value in looking for breakdowns versus actually going out and practicing and trying to basically trial yourself by fire? Or does there need to be a blend of both?
I think a blend of both, which is going to be the most cliche answer, but I think that, so I like making breakdowns and understanding the sandbox as best as I can, because I think Destiny, and that's my way of improving constantly, because I think Destiny is it's a deck building game. Half of it's a deck building game at least, where like you can completely outplay someone simply because you made a better loadout that counters them. Obviously, there's execution, but I'm saying that like as someone that's like quote unquote worse than another player, which I would attribute that to be me a lot of the time. I feel like I'm a decent player. I'm a good player, but like there are people that are mechanically better than me. They have better reaction speed than me. They have better positioning than me. There's
always a bigger fish.
Right. There's like, you know, there's a lot of players that are very, very good at Destiny. Even just mentally stronger than me in game, you know. So my way of kind of like countering that is like, all right, well, I know a lot about this game, and I've taken it upon myself to know as many engagements and deck building aspects and, you know, interactions as possible, and that gives me by proxy a lot of awareness. And then I put that into practice by making my loadouts, and I can look at the metagame and be like, all right, what's a deck that I can build that's going to give a lot of people a hard time like this? For example, if snipers are really big and aim assist is bonkers on snipers, I'm gonna run double dodge with high mobility. Why? Because anytime a sniper looks at me, goodbye aim assist. I'm not dying to you. Like it's that kind of a thing.
I do want to bring up a point here, is that you are playing the end game as it should be, for lack of a better phrase. I know it's cliche, the way Bungie intended. I feel like most people don't approach Destiny the same way, though. Like they don't see, like they understand synergy and they understand like these buzzwords, but they don't take the extra step to incorporate builds versus play styles. Like they don't develop multiple play styles to work with different builds. So in their case, do they just need to wake up and realize they're playing Destiny wrong? Or is it more advantageous to them, say, just go out there and see what works, or just watch Kami Cakes, Drewsky, Nomad, Patty Cakes, whoever, and try and pick up tips there? Like, how do you help those people?
I think learn fundamentals from where you can, but don't be afraid to innovate. I accept what's very good in this game. For example, Stompies and Hunter and a shotgun or whatever the heck you want to say is very, very powerful. It will probably always be very, very powerful fundamentally. But it doesn't mean that like, and sure, some days I might use that because I see value in it, but I'm never afraid to innovate with what I see valuable. If you know the fundamentals of like what's making the game, like what kind of turns an engagement in the game, or like what the certain way things work, you can innovate on your own loadout and like what you see valuable, and create a play style that could potentially be very problematic for other players. And what I say, like, people need to start playing like this, I don't think you need to play like this. Yeah, you can just go watch people and be like, yeah, they're using this, so it must be good, so I'm going to use that. That's not like wrong per se, but I do think that you might be selling yourself short of the Destiny experience if you aren't maybe willing to step out of the norm and try and innovate for yourself and see what you come up with. It's really fun.
Like there's such a stigma around grenade launchers at the moment, at least on Twitter. I don't know what it's like on YouTube. I'm sure it's the same, because YouTube is just it's an interesting place filled with interesting characters, full of different opinions, shall we say. And I do want to touch on like the concept of honor with respect to different guns in a second. When it comes to getting better, though, we're talking about your own personal journeys. Is it easier to do this with friends, or should you do this by yourself?
I think it's better to do with friends, personally. I only, like, if you want to regard me as a good player, I feel like I've only gotten to where I am skill-wise because I was surrounded by some friends who were far, far better than I was, or just willing to put in the time like I was. It was either like we're at the same skill level or like kind of ish. I could have been a little bit better, it could have been a little bit worse, and we were all willing to put in the time together, and that kind of like fueled each other, and it was fun. It's like authentically fun. And then later on, a lot of the time I remember in Halo, like, I'm 100% willing to admit that I was the worst person on my team, but I gained so much from the people that I was surrounded with in terms of like how to play FPS and like how to be good at Halo in that case, which transfers over in many ways to Destiny, because I was surrounded by people that were like way better and way more experienced than me and learned from them.
So having like-minded people definitely helps with the improvement mindset, you'd say then?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. Here's a bit of a vague question, and it's something that I have a feeling I can answer this pretty well, but I don't know about you because you keep saying, I don't know if you want to see me as a good player. You know, you're very for lack of a better term, you're quite humble about your own abilities. How did you know that you were not that you were good, but you were becoming good? Like, when was the switch flipped in your mind that you were realizing that, oh, hey, I'm a totally different player now, and I'm actually kind of I can pop off now?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. I feel like it was when I started doing decently at like Halo events. Like, I'm not no pro or anything. I'm not gonna try and sell that. I'm not like super well known or whatever. But when I got like a top 32 or like, you know, a decent placing at like a LAN event, like, you know, and also like, you know, started like, you know, being able to like hang in like some pretty good lobbies of pretty good players. I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm getting pretty decent. So I guess that's like a super like numeric like kind of way, or like a tangible way to find that out, which is maybe a cheat in this case because there's nothing that applies like that to Destiny.
Right.
But I guess you could have in some cases like, hey, maybe like 5,500 is that marker for you. I think as long as you're making a goal that like kind of boosts your own confidence individually, that's all that matters.
Yeah, 100%.
Because to me, the boosting my confidence was like, even though I was the worst on my team, hey, getting like a decent placing at a Halo event that I felt like I worked so hard on was like, it felt good to me, and it boosted my confidence and made me feel like I want to, you know, like I want to play, and I feel like I'm pretty good because of this. I'm feeling confident because of this, and I want to keep playing to get better, because getting better is something that never stops. But again, I think that like in terms of like getting good or feeling like you got good, I think it's all about confidence. I think it's all about things that markers and goals that build your confidence.
My perspective on it is a little complicated because I definitely had a moment where I was realizing, oh, I'm actually kind of good. And that moment was when I hit 2100 for the first time, Fabled Season 4 in comp, back when comp was exponentially harder than it is right now. That's when I realized, hey, I've got one of the best weapons in the game because I grinded for it. And of course, my teammates were there and they helped and they were all part of the journey. It was one of the best experiences that I've had. It was just getting Luna's Howl, and then subsequently Not Forgotten, which was a huge milestone as well. But as I progressed from there and I became Unbroken, and then, you know, was basically one Lighthouse trip away from becoming flawless last season, I just realized that it's like goals are almost a byproduct of your journey to becoming good. Like it's not like you hit a goal and it doesn't mean you're good. It just means that you put in the work. Like and when it comes to Destiny 2, obviously it's a very different landscape now when it comes to like trials and cheating and all this rubbish that's in the sandbox with respect to bullet magnetism, wall hacks, reticle stickiness. I say rubbish when you compare it to actual quote-unquote competitive shooters like Valorant, CSGO, etc. D2 isn't competitive. There isn't much in the way of like a developed competitive endgame. So how do you know you're getting good in D2? How do you strive for improvement when it feels like the ceiling is capped?
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. It's a tough question. Like I said, for me, all I kind of do is like, even now, it to me it's just like set kind of tangible, or I don't know, like goals for myself that just make me feel more confident. I don't know. I feel like getting good and feel like, I'm good at the game type thing is as much as there are some set parameters to that, like, maybe you have a high KD, or like maybe you have a high win ratio, or you win a tournament or whatnot.
Stats don't mean anything,
Exactly, but I was gonna say like that. Those are all kind of loaded in some way. Maybe it's that you started playing Face It, or like, the very, very small Scrim community, and you start doing well. I don't know what that is, but to me, it's like, I think that it's just about like building confidence. I think that like getting good at a game is like putting the time in, being smart, and like, and building confidence. And I think that as you go and you keep knocking down those goals, or like building confidence, you feel like you're good. Like you feel like you're getting good. And man, if I could go back and think to myself, like when I felt even at Destiny, man, in year 1, I felt like I was good. God, I feel like I was so trash compared to where I am now. But like, I think that it was just like I was confident, right? Like I was doing things that I built confidence, and even now, maybe I'm just more confident now. I don't know. I think it's a lot about just building confidence.
Right. I mean, in my opinion, you're a streamer primarily these days.
Yep.
Even though you have a very strong YouTube following. When I see you play and you're popping off and you're having the time of your life, I think that to me is like your ideal state.
Yep.
Is that you have enough skill, and the challenge is there. The flow state is very much present. You're having a good time, chat's having a good time, and everyone's having fun. And that to me is like goals, because ultimately we do all this just to feel good. We all do this to feel happy.
Yep.
And then challenges and goals and everything like that are sort of extra. They're motivators, but I don't think that should be the end goal for anyone. And the reason I really want to ask you that, Drew, is because I'm struggling with my content to really understand like what is good in Destiny 2. Like what is the end game here? Like we see people complain about grenade launchers, we see them complain about Revoker, we see them complain about Mountaintop. People love to offset their own failings to other things that they can't control. They don't take ownership of their own defeats and their own like shortcomings.
Yep.
I just wonder if there's any sort of way to make content that makes people feel good about where they're at, because the nature of competition in PvP means you're always going to come short up against someone, unless of course you have perfect aim.
Yeah,
it's just 2 words. Why are you laughing?
I think that I think that it's just, it's gonna sound so cliche. I feel like I'm like my mom always says this to me. I feel like my mom's words like ringing in my head. It's like, do it because you love it. Do it because you really enjoy it, and do it because you love it, and just know that like there's always gonna be something else. There's always gonna be someone else that might seem better, or like a time where you just didn't feel like you did well. But I think that just having doing it because you love it, and having a good just mindset about just knowing that there's always room to grow, and just being so striving to grow is the most important thing. Just knowing that you are never ever done growing, and even if you're at the top of the top of the top, you are never done improving. It's just so in terms of tangibly what making I guess content to define what is good, I think that's tough, because I think that just means something different to everyone. I think that's just so subjective. What good might be to someone might be breaking 1 KD, and I'm not anyone to say that that's not good. If that's what you feel I'm good now, because before I was a 0.2, power to you, man. You're good. I don't know. I think that it's just, in many ways, I just think that it's more subjective. I don't think defining being good on comparing yourself to others' levels should matter. I think that it should just be subjective to you and your growth, and if that who you were before, and if you are enjoying what you're doing, just keep doing it, and just keep doing it because you enjoy it. And that's what I would say. I don't think there needs to be a tangible, like, this is, once you hit this point, you are now good kid. Like, it's, I think that's the best way I can encourage, you know, like, even making content about being happy about where you are.
Right.
Being happy about where you are to me is just like, hey, you're playing this game because you really enjoy it, right? You want to get better because, like, you really enjoy it. So, like, all right, just keep doing it because you really enjoy it.
That's actually super illuminating. I've now realized that once I've run out of things to say, Ascendant Nomad, the YouTube channel, will become a wellness channel. Got it.
Hell yeah.
Yoga.
Destiny wellness.
Pilates. One final question. And again, a very, very serious question in the manner that we started this whole recording. Do we, as Canadians, have a moral obligation to keep going to Tim Hortons, even though their coffee and their food is bad, in comparison to McDonald's, whose coffee and food are now actually objectively very, very good? Like coffee and donuts.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. I don't know. Like, I feel like as a Canadian, I've already what's the word? I don't know the word I'm looking for. There's a word here, but I've definitely strayed away from the Timmy's. I've forsaken. That's it. Oh wow, fitting. I've definitely forsaken Timmy's already, because I will tell you, I go to McDonald's for coffee and breakfast a lot more than Timmy's now, like significantly more.
This is problematic because we need. So my favorite Canadian coffee chain is not something that anyone can take seriously after you say the name. Balzac's. You knew.
Oh my god.
Knew.
Yep.
Like actually, BALZAC.
Yeah.
Apostrophe S. Balzac. It's Balzac's. I
I've
love
heard of
Balzac's. I love Balzac's.
Super funny.
And on that note, I think that's a pretty good place to end. So, Drew, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me on this.
Yeah, I like these discussions. I like these interviews. You're really good at it. I felt like this was pretty fun. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. We will definitely do it again once the world has gone to shit. Okay?
Hell yeah.
Take it easy, man.
Easy, dude.